Hey, chiropractors, welcome to Modern Chiropractic Mastery with your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, where we discuss the latest in marketing, business, and professional growth with some of the leading experts in the industry. Hey, docs, welcome to another episode of Modern Chiropractic Mastery. Today, I have a solo episode for you. One of the things we do with our coaching clients is work them through the capacity block breakthrough. We're going to go over that today of blocks that we see in practice growth. And in today, we're going to dive into clinical capacity block, where you're just kind of hit your max of patient visits you can see in a week or a day or a month. And we're going to dive into that today. But before we do, though, I do want to make mention we have a new offering in our coaching program aspect, and that is an associate training program. So if you are an owner doctor and you have an associate, whether it's fresh out of school or started with you recently or just needs some training, I think one of the things that we've realized with coaching so many chiropractors and practices is that there's really 4 stages of having an A team, and that, whether that's front desk, office manager, associates, yourself, but essentially, you need to have a talent acquisition plan. That is step 1. Step 2 is you need to have a great hiring process. Step 3 is a really strategic onboarding process. And then 4 is continued training. And one of the things we see oftentimes is you may hire a good associate, but the onboarding and the training wasn't really there. And that's something we've earmarked with a lot of our clients. And so we developed a coaching program. Again, it's going to be for the associate to attend and for the owner to sign up for and pay, but it's a great investment in your practice and in your associate. And the details are simple. It's a 6-month program. It's 2 training calls per month with different coaches of ours. We have 12 lessons that we work that associate through to make sure that they are doing everything appropriately, from treatment planning to report of findings to community outreach to overall communication to content marketing. I mean, we really sat down and thought of, like, what would be the ideal training program and skill set for an associate to have, and developed a training program around that. And it's only $749 per month. It's a 6-month commitment. And after that, there's no further commitment. You may choose to continue with our traditional marketing and coaching program for yourself or for your clinic, but this is just a 6-month process. So just go to our website, modernchiropracticmarketing.com, and just there's a contact form. Reach out to us and just say you're interested in the associate training program. We are only taking 7 practices to start out with this. And so, because the bandwidth of the different, I'm going to be doing some of the calls. Kurt Kimberger's going to be doing some of the calls. Dr. Ashley Jordan's going to be doing some of the calls, and Gage Winkle's going to be doing some of the calls. So we've got a team of people that are going to really specialize in a particular call for your associate. Let's take a break from today's episode and announce our first sponsor. This is going to be Propel Marketing and Design. I've known Darcy Sullivan for years. We've worked hand in hand on my websites. I don't trust anybody else to do the search engine optimization. She does a great job. There's so much to it. A lot of the lingo and the words are beyond my comprehension, but it's just amazing work that she does. And if you're really going to get results with Google, you have to make sure your website is SEO optimized. And I really don't want you doing it yourself as a chiropractor. So you just have to have this type of stuff done. And if you're looking to get more organic online traffic that pulls in new patients, Propel Marketing and Design is currently offering chiropractors who listen to this podcast a free SEO website review. The free review will help you uncover methods that will improve your website and boost your search engine visibility. Head over to propelyourcompany.com/chiropractor and schedule your free SEO website review. You won't regret it. She gets great results. Your website needs this. Your search results need this. Head on over there to propelyourcompany.com/chiropractor to get your free SEO website review. All right. So let's dive into today's topic. Again, we developed a tool. We have a handful of tools we work our coaching clients through to make sure they're optimizing themselves and their practice. And the capacity block breakthrough has been well received. And it's a whole document where we get clear on maybe our biggest capacity block. Some of the ones that a practice may have are, support team members. You're lacking that. Maybe you're lacking clinical duplication, which is just another word that I heard from the Scheduling Institute, which would say your associate doctor being able to have duplication of clinical services. Space could be a block. Equipment, lack of equipment could be a block. Marketing is definitely a block for many. Could be your mindset. If you don't think you have any blocks, it probably is your mindset. Time could be a block. Profit, cash, profit margin, cash flow, that could be a block. And then delegation could be one of those as well. And a lot of times we'll get clear with the client, like, what do you think is your biggest block right now? And they'll pick one. And then what we'll realize is that there's a lot of kind of issues from that one block, right? And so if you have a block in, your clinical capacity, you can only see so many people right now, and you've maxed yourself out, and you're struggling to break through that. There could be like five things going on there, and one of the common issues we're seeing, unfortunately, a lot with the younger DCs that are running into this clinical block is I'll get on the phone with them and they're busy, right? They can't really fit anybody in for the week, but they're really not all that profitable and they're not paying themselves what they would like to. And we're seeing it chronically in the chiropractors that are putting a value on time in their clinic. The 1 hour DC or even sometimes the 30-minute one, they can run into it as well. The 1 hour ones are really running into it. And what's happening there, and again, even our 10 and 15-minute DCs are running into it as well. But what's happening with the 1 hour DC is that they're filling their schedule, but there's just not enough revenue and definitely not enough profit margin so that then they're not able to see more people. They're not able to pay themselves what they would like, let alone hire some help to then free them up to see more people because they're in a finite business. Kind of like a massage therapist runs into that, right? Like part of the problem with massage therapy is it's a time-based economy, not a results-based economy. And people pay for, I want an hour massage, I want a 90-minute massage, but people are only going to pay so much for a massage. And even if you're great at massage, like, are you gonna pay, $400 for a hour massage? Probably not, unless you're at like maybe a Ritz Carlton in Paris. And that's a shitty massage, but you get the point, like, there's only so much the market can handle paying for an hour massage, and we're seeing the same thing with our chiropractors that are spending an hour with a patient themselves, is that, even though you're great, you're doing amazing things with rehab, I love all the things that you're doing, but the reality of it is that you can only see so many people in a week if you're spending an hour with a patient, and then you can only charge so much, right? Like the market is going to say, yeah, like I like spending an hour with Dr. Smith, but can I handle, $400, $500 for that session? And some people can pull that off, right? Like there are some people. I had a great episode with Dr. James Spencer a few years ago who's pulled it off. But if you listen to that episode, which I recommend you do, if you are a 1 hour DC, this isn't an episode today that's bashing. I'm just giving the realities of it, and then some things we got to consider to work through that. But go back and listen to that episode. He didn't start out with that. Like he over years built up to that. It built a level of expertise and in the eyes of enough people to where it has worked out for him. What I'm seeing too much is the only outlet valve for the 1 hour DC when they hit this clinical capacity is to raise their rates substantially to try to get the revenue and the profit in there. And they're still only going to get to a certain level. And ultimately there's a high sales component to that. There's a select few that can pull it off. And then too many are trying to pull it off early in their career when they have not built up any level of expertise in the community that would people would see the perceived value of spending $400 in an hour to get treatment, right? And so we're seeing that and that's one of the ways where, it's not completely akin to the massage therapist, but it's the same animal that a massage therapist runs into and why they have a hard time really building a thriving business that pays them a professional living and able to hire people. And the best, most sustained practices that I've worked with, whether we've coached them or they've been in our masterminds, are the one that can, increase revenues, ethically and then be able to hire teams and be able to hire associates and they don't burn out. I just don't know how many of the, hour-long visit DCs, are gonna have associates down the road that they're gonna be able to also pay the associate a professional wage. And so you're gonna either never hire an associate or you're gonna burn through associates because you can't really compensate them effectively, or they're not gonna be able to keep up your model of care effectively. And so it runs into a problem. And so we see a big clinical capacity block in those folks. But again, we see it with others as well. We definitely do. And we have a lot of solutions for all types of chiropractors to work through that. But as we dig deeper onto why someone would have a clinical capacity block. So again, this is the doctor who is maxed out on their schedule or pretty close to it and having a hard time breaking through that ceiling of complexity. Let's take a short break for one of our great sponsors, TrackStat. It is a new type of software plugin for your EHR that combines patient communication, marketing, automation, and statistics with patient and employee tracking. Built by chiropractors for chiropractors, it shows your team what to focus on each day. See patient visit habits, missing information, unpaid bills, insurance collection visit average, and more. Great visibility of data so you can focus on filling your office with your best patients. When you can see what your staff and patients are doing or not doing and take action accordingly, your profits naturally grow. Take TrackStat for a test drive in your office with our free trial. Not a techie, no problem, we can help. To get started on your free trial, visit trackstat.org and watch the demo. That is trackstat.org. One of the other blocks we see is they don't have enough support team members, right? They don't have that person to help with all the other things so that the doctor can focus on what they can focus on and maximize their license. So you got to look at if you had a support team member, a CA, a rehab CA, a front desk person, a preceptor program, would that help you break through that clinical capacity, right? If you're only able to see, 75 in a week and you feel like you're maxed out, how do we get you to 100 a week and not feel maxed out? The next is gonna be clinical duplication. It's obviously that associate. The ideal situation is you've maxed out your schedule and you got plenty of profit margin. And you say, yeah, I've got cash on hand. I've got cash flow confidence. I can afford an associate because I'm maxed out. The worst scenario is when you're maxed out with visits and you can't afford an associate. That's when you don't have enough profit margin. And too many practices are not designing themselves early on to provide great care, but also enough profit margin to where when you are maxed out, you can afford an associate. And so when you do this right, and this is what we try to get chiropractors to do, when you do this right and you have enough people being able to afford your care, and I'm not saying be cheap, but be to where enough people can afford it, and you can grow your practice and have meat on the bone to hire an associate, that's a healthy practice. That's a healthy business model. And so oftentimes, practices hit this clinical capacity issue and they can't afford an associate. So they're spinning their wheels, or they can afford an associate. They're just having a hard time finding the right associate. And so those are two different pathways we got to solve. And we often work with practices and owners to solve that, whichever path they're down, right? Next is space. We definitely run into scenarios where a practice is at a capacity and they just don't have the space. They're like, I'd like to hire an associate doctor, but I don't have enough rooms for them. And we got to solve that space. So we might say, okay, let's figure out what the space resolution is. And maybe that's not going to happen for some time, but we could have a plan for it. Let's work that out. And then once we solve the space, then we can go hire the associate. So you might be saying, I got a clinical capacity issue and it's because I need an associate. But the real root of the cause is you just don't have enough space for the associate. So space is a common block for clinical capacity. Let's take a short break from today's episode to tell you about the best decision I've made in my clinic in the last 10 years. And that has been adding shockwave therapy to our clinic. The outcomes have been really impressive. Certain conditions we were struggling with in the past, we're now seeing results with the shockwave therapy for that. And second of all, the ROI has been really good. When you make a big investment in something, you want to see a return. And we're seeing that return in clinical outcomes and in our investment. And that's been really nice to see. I chose Keenest Medical for 4 reasons. One is the technology is top notch. You have to have great technology. There's a lot out there that isn't quite up to snuff. The second thing is they have a really good clinical training. They have an exclusive partnership with Academy of Shockwave Excellence so that you can become clinically proficient in shockwave. You do need to get skilled at it. I think that's a big differentiator between practices that are getting great results and seeing the ROI is they have a great clinical aspect to that as well. So you want to get trained appropriately. Third is they have in-house service team for all of your technical support, which is key when you're investing in a machine like this. And then lastly, they have a very in-depth marketing and business support for you so that you can launch this into your practice effectively, that you can get that ROI on it, that you can get the clinical outcomes. And they also have really good financing options if you need that. So go to keenestmedical.com, KINAS medical.com, mention MCM podcast and receive a free shockwave in practice book with a purchase of a unit. So that's keenestmedical.com, KINAS medical.com, and mention MCM podcast. The next is mindset. That one we could probably spend an hour on itself, but certain things I see there, people are reluctant to hire associates. People are reluctant to increase overhead, even though they've got enough meat on the bone. People are reluctant to pay fairly. People are reluctant. They're worried to hire an associate because they might leave them or take their patients. People are reluctant to go from spending an hour to 30 minutes with a patient or go from 30 minutes to 20 minutes with a patient and have a rehab CA do the rehab. People are reluctant in many ways when they hit this clinical capacity. They don't want to complicate their business anymore. A lot of things happen there, and we have to dive into that with folks as well. So, mindset. I think probably mindset is probably at the root of a lot of blocks we have. Next is lastly is profit and cash flow. I kind of touched on it already, right? It's just we got to build a business that has profit, profit margin, enough, and it's not a profit percentage only, right? So we got a couple scenarios that we can see happen here is I'll get a chiropractor that keeps the overhead super low. They're really happy about things and they'll brag about the profit percentage, but you look at it and they're maxed out and their revenue is $200,000 for the clinic for the year, and they're paying themselves 50%, so 100,000 a year, which is fine on the surface of it, but now they've hit that block and they can't break through that because there's not enough. So maybe they got a high percentage of profit in that practice because overhead is super low, and maybe they're not reinvesting money into it versus a practice that's like $1 million practice and has a less profit margin. Maybe they're only 25% profit, which isn't only, that's a good profit. Again, if the owner's paying themselves a full salary, reference Greg Crabtree's work, but 25% is 250,000 a year, and that's a professional living for a chiropractor, right? And so the profit percentage might be lower, but the absolute amount of money being taken home by the owner doctor is obviously way higher. I think we all would trade in 100K salary for 250K, but it takes work to get there and building that up. And so profit is important, cash flow is important, cash on hand is important. If you have that, you can typically break through a lot of the blocks you have. And like Dan Sullivan, a strategic coach, says, is if you have the money to solve a problem, you don't have a problem, right? And a lot of us as chiropractors have problems, and as part of it is we don't have enough profit and cash flow to solve that problem. And so that could be the root of where your clinical capacity block is there. We have more to this tool. We really try to break down like what's the big domino we got to tackle, then go to the next and go to the next, and really help you break through that ceiling of complexity that is in your practice so that you can grow and then ultimately, yeah, like pay yourself a professional living. I'd love for you to be paying yourself 200,000 a year and then having an associate that's making 100,000 a year in a few years of hard work. And now you're making 250 and the associate's making a buck 15 or whatever, in year 2 or 3. And then you're both growing from there and you got a great situation. I'm just not seeing that enough. And a lot of the root cause is because the owner doctor is running into blocks and they're not working to solve that, or maybe just don't have the know-how, and nothing wrong with that. The first step is to admitting what you're missing, and that's where we're here to help you out, no matter what type of practice you are. If you want to go from an hour and work on how to increase your capacity block without having to, charge a ton of money that very few people can afford, and you're just not quite there yet in the ability to do that. And maybe you will someday down the road as you build up your expertise, like James Spencer has. Again, watch that show. Just Google search James Spencer, Modern Chiropractic Mastery podcast, and it'll pop up. I think it's a great timeline if you're going to go that route to do it. But in the meantime, there are some other solutions for you to get there. Or maybe you just, you're spending 15 minutes with a patient, but your OVA is super low and you don't have enough profit margin there. We work with a lot of chiropractors to increase that OVA, office visit average, dollar amount per visit there. So I hope this was helpful. We'll be doing on some of these solo calls to finish up this year. I'll be breaking down some of these other blocks that we have and try to help you out in growing your practice and not being busy and broke. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And if you want to make the shift from busy, broke, and broken to time-free and cash confident, or you just want to continue with the exponential growth, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com. Look at the MCM Mastery tab, watch the short video on there, and check out what we are doing now for evidence-informed chiropractors. We are equal parts coaching and marketing done for you. Yes, you shoot some videos, we help you with campaign strategies and ideas and really become a thought leader in your community. You shoot those videos, you send them to us, we produce, edit, and brand them to you. Then we distribute them through all of your channels. We also take them and we turn it into one good blog per month. And every other month, we have Darcy Sullivan producing a robust blog with a topic that you pick from her database to help with your SEO. So we essentially become your content marketing agency to make sure your practice is always having ethical, elegant content marketing to help grow your practice. On the coaching side, we also help you with everything from marketing ideas to business, communications, finances, anything practice growth, and really try to help prevent you from being stuck on that island. And we hold you accountable. We have a great group of doctors that are just doing amazing things. And we look forward to help you out to take that next step in your practice. So again, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com and learn more.